Hi everyone, welcome to today's session on Twinmotion. Today we'll be going through the Twinmotion for Revit add-in and all of the items listed below, including connecting to a model, interface, navigation, inserting objects, assigning materials, capturing and exporting images, and finally updating a model. Twinmotion for Revit is available as an add-in for Revit 2023.1 and beyond. For versions before then, you need to use the Datasmith add-in, which is available within our knowledge base. First off, I'm going to demonstrate how to bring a model in from Revit to Twinmotion within Revit 2022. You can see the Datasmith add-in creates a tab within your browser. Now, to connect it to Twinmotion, you'll open up the view, select the 3D view to sync, launch Twinmotion, open file, import, and then establish a direct link back to that particular view from that particular file. Now, direct link means that any changes within Revit will be updated within Twinmotion. So that's now processed. If you have any issues with it processing, it might be worthwhile selecting a different view within Twinmotion and then trying again to let it refresh. Okay, next we're going to demonstrate how to do the same thing within Revit 2024. Within 2024, there's actually a button for launching and creating a direct link in one go. We go to View, Twinmotion, we can go to Open in Twinmotion. That will then establish a direct link. We can make that a new project or establish that to an existing project. We're going to go New Project. It's advisable to leave all of the settings below as per their defaults. We find those the best for handling the model. That will then open up a new session of Twinmotion, and it will then have your model already connected as a direct link, which you can see down here within the import doc. Okay, we're just going to have a look at navigation. We're going to close off some of these panels when we do so. To show the navigation panel, we can go to the eye in the top right here and select Show Navigation. By default, the settings within Twinmotion are set to Twinmotion Editor. Twinmotion Editor means that you can orbit and look around using left mouse button for orbit, right mouse button for look around. I find this a little bit counterintuitive and a little bit different to some of the other programs I'm familiar with. So I prefer to change mine over to Twinmotion Presentation, where look around is actually the left mouse button. Okay, so using these settings, we can look around using the left mouse button. We can pan using the middle mouse button. We can orbit using the right mouse button, which tends to throw you off a bit, which is why I prefer to use the look around. And you can move around using W, forward, S, backwards, A, left, D, right, and Q and E will go up and down. Now you can toggle the speed by pressing 1 to 6 on the keyboard. To see what those speeds represent, you can have a look within the eye here, and you can see them listed out here. I find the most comfortable speed is walk speed or number 3. Okay, so let's take a look at the interface within Twinmotion. Now, the top bar along the top here gives you access to creating a new project or a new scene, opening existing ones, saving, etc. All the usual functions that you would get in most softwares. There is also the ability to take the view into full screen by clicking this button up here, and you can minimize again just using the minimize button there. Across the top here, we have the header, which contains our home page, which will take you back to the home there, which has additional resources. We have the toolbar for selecting and modifying elements, and we also have the ability to sign into our Epic account to get additional resources. In the middle here, we have our viewport, which is where we have our model and where we can interact with our model. We can also switch to presenter mode up in the top right here, which will make it basically full screen. There are additional settings in here, such as different view displays if you do switch to the full screen mode. So just be wary, they are not available in this mode here. Okay, the eye in the top right allows us to control other settings such as time of day. You can type in the time of day or you can use the slider there. Our walk speed settings to take a screenshot, and a few other settings relating to the user. Okay, on the side panels. So the side panels are obviously on the side. We have two sides. We've got the left side panel, which contains the library. The library allows you to access the materials and object assets that you can apply to your model. And on the right-hand side, we have these four buttons. And starting with the left here, we have the scene panel, which allows us to select, show or hide, and organize the content within our project. The next panel along is the properties panel, which displays the properties of selected elements. So obviously you have to select elements for that to work. We then have XYZ panel, where we can see the size, scale, and rotation of objects and change them. And finally, we have the view sets panel here. The view sets allow us to set up pre-configured display of elements. So whether things are on or off. Now, while we're in here, it's a good idea to always create one that is just show everything in case you do turn things off. This allows you to quickly and easily turn everything back on. So it'd be good. Now, finally, there is another hidden panel. If we go into scene here, we can see ambience. If you click that and you go to properties, you can see that there's additional settings relating to the environment, which is the sky, the camera, render, and effects panels. So that one's a little bit tricky to find. Okay, along the bottom here, we have our footer. In the footer, we have our import doc, which shows our connection through to our model. In this case, it's our Revit model. We can also access additional settings there. Next along, we have our materials doc. Our materials doc shows the materials currently in use within the project, and we can manage those. More additional settings than those there. The next along is the populate panel. Now, the populate panel allows us to randomly scatter or paint, usually vegetation, and create paths for animation. Next along, we have our media doc. The media doc allows us to create screenshots, or sorry, we should say images, which are stills within the model. And finally, the export panel, which allows us to export those images or media from the project. I'm just going to collapse all these up. So we're just back to our main view. Okay, first off, we're going to have a look at assigning media materials to elements. So we're just going to navigate through in our model over to our building here, and we're going to open up the library. Within the library, we have materials button, and we can navigate through by clicking on the desired category. And then to apply a material, you simply just drag and drop it across to your model. This will then apply that material to every element with that material as defined in Revit. So you can see that that's applied over here and possibly over here as well, because these are the same material definition within Revit. Okay. Next, let's have a look at applying some tiles down. So we'll go back to materials. We're going to head into tiles. We're going to have a look at some concrete tiles here. Let's try out concrete tile 7, and I will just drag that out onto our surface. Okay. Now to tweak the settings of that, what you can do is you can bring up the properties and you can change the scale of it. Now, what I'm finding in Twinmotion versus coming into from Revit is that you tend to need to scale it up a fair bit for most materials. If you'd like to swap a material, you can always just drag and drop a new one on. And now, whilst the properties panel is open, we can scale it quite quickly and easily. Okay, let's go and assign some materials to our table surfaces. So let's have a look for some timber. Now I'm just going to do a search instead this time under materials. By going into materials, it'll actually filter to this folder and subfolders. So I'm going to look for ash 06. So I'm familiar with this material. I'm going to drag that onto our table surface and we're going to change the scale of that up to 10. Now you can see that's applied to multiple surfaces there. If you want to rotate it, you can use this button here and that'll actually rotate material. You can even click in and type in a rotation. Okay, we're just going to head inside now. And we notice that we have missed a couple of tables here. So in order to understand or remember what material has been used, you can't just select a table surface using this button here because this is the select object, translate and move objects. Actually, you need to use this eyedropper. So I can click the eyedropper and that will tell me what that material is. And from there, I can actually just drag that across to other surfaces like so. Okay. You can also use that eyedropper to identify the materials within the materials dock. So if we go out to here and we say we want to use that same concrete tile, we might use the eyedropper again, shortcut T, click that, you'll notice that it displays the latest or the material that we used, and you can drag from there as well. Now note that changing this material changes that material in all instances across the project. Okay. All right, that's about it for materials. We're going to head over to objects library now. So we'll go into the library again, and we'll minimize a few of these palettes. Now the objects contains all of the elements for placing within our project. So we're just going to go out a bit, and we're going to place something over here. So in this case, we're going to place, say, a bin. Okay, bend it up over here into our project. So we're going to go into city. It's American terminology, so we're going to use trash can, and here's the bin that we want. Again, it's just a drag and drop into the project, and then you can modify that once it's placed. So to move it, you can either grab the little red line to go this way, the green line to go that way, or the blue line to go that way. I'll just use that Control Z to undo. Or you can click in the center of it and move it sort of freely. Okay. To rotate it, you can click on the arc, the blue arc. That will rotate in this angle. You can change that there. Or you can use this tool at the top here to rotate it in all different directions. So I'll click that. That will bring up other arcs that you can use to rotate it in other ways. We'll undo that because we don't want all of our rubbish to get onto the ground. Okay, next we're going to drop in some vegetation. So we might just actually come up to the front here and we're going to pop in a tree. So we'll head back to our library, vegetation, trees. Now I do have a favorited selection of trees. When you hover over your trees, you can see the little hearts or even any of your objects. If I click this little heart, it'll actually show my favorited objects. I can now drag that in. There's my tree. Now trees have additional settings to them. Certain items within Twinmotion have additional settings, which you can access by going to the properties palette, selecting the tree, element, and then you can change it. So you can change the age of it, which will actually make the tree grow. You can see it change. It's not just a scale. And you can also change the seasons. So summer, full green, autumn, it's heading off to orange, and winter, it's got no leaves. Okay. Okay, next we're going to swap out some objects. So we noticed that there's a lot of chairs in this cafe that we do need to swap out. Now, replacing those would be a little bit cumbersome to do it one by one. So what you can do is you can select one object. You can bring up your scene panel. You can find that object because once you select it, it will take you to that object in that tree. And you can select it and you can click select all instances, which will select them all. And then you can click the three dots and we're just going to try that again. Select all instances and make sure we pick one that we already selected. And then we'll go replace object. And within properties, it's now asking me to replace the object. So I'm going to go find a chair. We'll just do a search here. Look for the chair that we want. Drag that chair into the replace object dialog and click start replacement. Now you want to keep transform on, otherwise all the chairs will be facing exactly the same direction, say north-south. Transform will rotate them and scale them. And just like that, they've transformed all of those chairs. Sometimes when you bring in objects from external parties, if we go back to the library here and we run a search, if I search for umbrella, it's going to come up with various objects coming from the internet. Now you do need to be signed into your Epic account to download new assets. You'll see that there's a little download arrow. It can't be downloaded yet until I sign in. Sign in is quite easy at the top right here, and you can do so. Now to swap out our umbrellas, for instance, you may select the object and bring up the XYZ data. Now it's worthwhile recording that information because if I swap that object, here's another little handy tool. You can go side by side. If I replace object with this one, you'll find sometimes the scale isn't quite right. And so it's huge, essentially. So that's the base of the umbrella. So what we want to do is we want to select it, scale it. But by doing so, it's thrown it right off. So, and then we can come through and because I've recorded all the position, I can actually type this in. So this I knew was 104 minus 96 and 0. And you can see that's now down in the right place, down there in our view. Okay. Now, because we've replaced that object, might actually need to bump up, obviously. 0. Underground. Use this little one here. There we go. Now, because that's replaced the object, it means that it will actually update, should our model update in Revit, rather than just throwing the object in. Okay, next we're going to capture some images. So we're going to go into, let's close all of these docs. We're going to go into media first. And it's quite easy to capture an image. Just get into position, click, make sure you're on images and click plus. And that's done. There's image 1. Move around, take another image, move around, take another image, etc. These will actually remember the settings or the locations, so you can now use those as stills and you can navigate from them as well. So it's good to save preset views. Now to actually get those images out of Twinmotion, go to the Export tab, Export panel, click Image, pick the ones that you want to export. I'll just pick one for now, and then click Start Export. It'll then ask you to export it, and that will then export all of the items that you had to the desired format. Okay, finally, we're going to have a look at updating your model. So we'll minimize all these again. Okay, so we've set up our tables and chairs here. Now to update our model within Revit 2024, because we've got a direct link, we can actually just move objects around. So let's pop that over there. And this umbrella, same. And go into View, Twinmotion, and Synchronize. That will then sync up the model within Twinmotion. And you can see there's our table and chairs. Who knows what happened to our umbrella? Looks like it's moved over there. And so those are actually directly linked to those elements. If you were to say delete those objects or just place them in loosely, they're not going to be direct links. So it's a great workflow to have your elements in as basic Revit elements and swap them out. For Revit 2022, what you do is you make your change. So this pool, for instance, which if I go in my other Twinmotion, looks like this. We're at Speedy Gonzalez speed. I'm just going to make a change. Here's one I prepared earlier. What do you want? Want to do an update? Bigger pool. Use this button here, Synchronize, under Datasmith. So Synchronize, head over to Twinmotion, and you can see that one's updated there.